My name is Volker Brandt, and together with my brother, I run a small consulting company. Basically, we hire ourselves out to people who have some Solaris systems and need advice on low-level things. We specialize in installation and packaging and all these things. So I'm actually one of these very few strange people who enjoy installing Solaris and installing. You get the picture. So first of all, I have a confession to make. I lied. There aren't really 1,000 ways of installing OpenSolaris. There's only like 2. And 1.5 where there's development in progress. So we're going to have a look at those 2. And they're called Caiman and AI. And I have another confession to make. AI doesn't really stand for artificial intelligence. I just put it there the short way so I could write the snappy catchphrase there, the alligator meets the Terminator. So AI, our friends at Sun, we use the acronym. It doesn't really stand for AI. But we'll see in a minute what it actually does stand for. So here's what we're going to do tonight. As I grow older, I appreciate the use of large type in presentations. So I've put in very large type. If there's anything that you don't understand, that you cannot read, that is strange, or you're just bored, feel free to interrupt me at any time. It'll be fine, and just jump up and shout, and that's perfectly okay. So we're going to have a look at the big picture in the installation world. Then we're going to take a closer look at Caiman. Then we will check the automated installer, which is actually what AI stands for. Then we will have an AI example, and I will just give some random advice, just me ranting away at what Sun did wrong and I would do better, etc. And then last but not least, I will point you to 2 or 3 links that might interest you. Okay, the big picture, what is it? There's interesting things in the installation world, and when you follow the Sun-related mailing list, you see these terms. Now I have thought that, well, with the Linux people being here at the same time, there might be some track hopping and there might be some Linux people here, so I wanted to start by explaining the terms. I think you guys are all hardcore Solaris anyway, so I'll go faster on this part and then I'll be a little slower on where it's actually getting interesting. So what do all these things mean? Caiman, Dwarf, Caiman, and Slim Install. Just think of them as the installer and the live CD. DC, that means distribution constructor. It's a very interesting thing. Stay away from it. It's good and it's fun, but it's a little too complicated. This is logically the first step. Before you have a distribution, you need to create one, but it's a little out of basic level, so we'll have that for later maybe if there's time. Then there is Caiman and the live CD-ROM. Basically, Caiman and the live CD-ROM need each other, but they are separate things, and they are developed separately, and they have somewhat separate areas on the gate in the source tree. Then, of course, there's the image packaging system. Sometimes it's called PKG5 in reference to the man page that describes the format. I will not say anything about this, which is very good because we've just heard all about it, at least at the packaging manager. And then there's, of course, AI, the automated installer. And there's 2 other interesting things, which are called the text installer and the virtual machine constructor. And I've put prototype there in red, which means they don't really exist yet. They exist as specifications. They exist as prototypes. So if we have time, and if you're interested, you can ask them questions later. But I would like to focus on 2 other things, Caiman and the automated installer. So we'll have a closer look at Caiman. So, the good old times. I've been using Solaris for what is now 2009. Oh my God, well, a longer time. And I have seen this hundreds, if not thousands of times. I have seen this question coming up. And if you go out and take a CD from Solaris 10 and you put it into your machine and you do any kind of an interactive installation, you will see this question. Now, who has heard of these terminals here? Has anyone seen a Lear Ziegler ADM31? Very good. That makes 2 of us.
Not lately, though.
Okay. So at my home, I actually have a Televideo TVI 955, which is almost the TVI 925, and it shares the exact same escape sequences. But even I was scared connecting it to my sons and trying to install it with terminal type 10. So you see the problem. Solaris installation, the historical version, is really way back in time. modern users, modern admins don't understand what it's all about. They find it's too difficult, they find it's too arcane, and Sun has recognized that, and Sun has gone out and said, okay, we need to fix that. And in typical Sun style, they didn't do what IBM would do, which I would spare you the experience, but they said, okay, let's throw it all away and start again. So they did. So what were the design goals of Cayman? You don't want these questions. Do I want to tell a video 925? You just want to have a modern look and feel. You want it to be simple to use, even for inexperienced people. You want it to be easy and streamlined so that people don't have to do a certain set of tasks that they don't really understand. They just should be able to click on something and it should run. The installation process of Solaris 10, which I know or Solaris pre-Cayman, which I know very well, is very powerful and can do many things. Unfortunately, that has a drawback. It means that it does not really concentrate on anything. It does a lot of stuff, and this Cayman tool should really concentrate on the operating system installation and nothing else. The user experience should be in the foreground. You should be able to install a system knowing almost nothing. I mean, we all know this from Windows. But Solaris asks a lot of questions, at least in the interactive installation sequence, and most users don't really know what they're being asked, and if they do know, they find it tedious. So just run through the installation asking as few questions as possible, and avoid spurious reboots. There should be exactly one reboot. 0 reboots would be the coolest thing, but I mean, 1 reboot is okay. So let me just grab my watch here so that I can give me the watch there. Okay, so I can know if I have to talk twice as fast. So, okay. So, and of course, one of the most crucial things that we take for granted now that we get these nice CDs from Sun every now and then with a new Open Solaris release is leverage a live CD concept, which means what you all know and have come to expect from Ubuntu and all the other distributions, the concept pioneered by Knoppix. Just put in a CD and twiddle your thumbs a while, and then you get a nice desktop, and then you can stop there and say, this is Solaris, oh, this looks so strange, I'll go back to my old system. And nothing has happened, no harm done. Or you could say, oh, this looks intriguing, but I know I have 3 thumbs and I'll just don't install it now, but I want to play with it. Very nice. I mean, you know all this concept. So run the desktop off the CD and get the rest from a network-based repository. And of course, there was one other design goal, which is basically attract the Linux people. Make it more Linuxy. Make it so that the people who are experienced in Linux can actually use Open Source without bending over backwards or relearning everything or whatever. So that was the rationale for producing Cayman. And I know I am a little bit biased because I'm an old-timer, but I think they've done quite a good job. And if I were a first-time user, I'm sure I would have started with Cayman and not with a text installer or something. I don't work for Sun, so I'm entitled to criticize and complain, and there will be lots of that later. But for now, I must say, I rather have come to like Cayman. Okay, so does anyone know where the name Cayman came from? It's really quite funny because the rest of the systems have very cool names like AI and DC and all these speaking names. But why is it the thing called Cayman? Well, when it first came up, some funny guy found out that the Cayman is the enemy of the anaconda. And of course, the anaconda is well known in the Red Hat installation world. And so this is really a design statement. The Cayman should be able to, fight the anaconda. Unfortunately, sometimes the anaconda does win. So it's sort of a 50-50 proposition there, but I think Sun's done a fairly good job. So how does it work? We're not going to look into this because there's going to be a lot of confessions. I have another confession to make. I'm not really interested in Cayman in this presentation. I'm more interested in AI because I think you basically use Cayman and install your system, and then you go on to do different things, and actually hacking inside Cayman and slim install and all that is not what we're interested in, although it's interesting. So you boot up a live CD, and there's this strange guy, Jack, being logged in on your personal computer, and that's it. And then you have to execute user bin GUI install, either by clicking on the icon that's on the desktop, or you can actually run it by typing it in a suitable shell. And I think this is a quite neat trick. If you have any problems with your graphics card, if you get your machine up to the point where you can actually log in by however means, by going onto the console, by enabling SSH and going into the machine from some other box, using the Jack user or by whatever, and you can just set the display variable, and you can redirect the user bin GUI install to some other display, and then you can at least install the machine. And then you can reboot your box, and then you can see if you can still see no graphics. If that's the case, you could log on remotely and try to debug the XOR configuration. So I've found this to be a neat trick. So if the thing is correct, and everyone's happy and the user is clicked, then the installation goes on, and the OS image gets copied off of the CD-ROM, and the machine is finally ready, and you can reboot, and all the rest you can install, you have to get from the repository. We've heard all about this from Michael just some minutes ago. So that's basically the way it works. There are some drawbacks. I had these nice, cute images there all over the presentation, but as I edited around, most of them got lost, so I didn't put them back, but this is basically what the drawbacks are. We have a CD-ROM. There's a conscious decision not to use a DVD. A CD-ROM is limited to 700-something megabytes. So that means it's always full, and that means there's discussion, do we need this, do we need that? There's a new driver, what can we kick off, and can we find a better compression system to squeeze out a couple of kilobytes and get stuff on the CD-ROM. Another big limitation is DHCP. I'll come back to DHCP a little later, but for many desktop, Windows switching, Linux using kind of people, DHCP is a mystery. DHCP is not a mystery. It's actually not so bad, as we're going to see a little later. But DHCP is a must for a standard installation. Otherwise, you will not have any network connectivity, and then you will not be able to install packages off of the IPS repository. And yeah, I think I said something about network auto magic. Network auto magic is a nice thing, but it's too complex for someone who's installing open source for the first time. So it's a little drawback. It's one of the things that people frequently stumble over when they try it for the first time. Oh, okay, the next point is just me. I'm an old guy. I don't like GUIs. Okay, I do use them now and then, but there's a GUI required. We will see that this is going to be fixed later, but the Cayman as we know it now on the OS disk, that actually needs a GUI, which means it needs an X11 display, basically. So there's no Spark version available. What can I say? Son, what were you thinking? The people who bought Spark machines made you rich? Well, semi-rich, okay. And then now you go out and develop stuff for x86 and don't give us Spark-loving people something? Well, okay. That's basically not a conscious decision. This is not as we are going to hurt you, Spark customers. This is basically the way the stuff was developed, but there is no Spark version available. That's too bad. And of course, if you have a system to play with, that's nice, and you have a mail reader, and you have a web browser, and you have a shell and stuff, that's okay. But to do real work, you need to have internet connectivity, or at least some network connectivity. For example, to a local IPS repository mirror. So, and of course, also Cayman is work in progress. So that means don't get too used to a certain specific feature that you might want or need. It's a moving target, and so that means use the newest version available. Basically, download the stuff off of genunix.org and use the most recent preview of the upcoming open source version. So actually, this moving target and work in progress reminder applies to everything that's in the remainder of the presentation. So after every slide, think that this slide will come again and it says, it's a moving target. And of course, I will use this well-known educational method of driving home the message by saying it again a number of times in the presentation. So, any questions about Cayman?
I have one remark. I think one major drawback is that you can just install with Cayman, but you can't upgrade the system from the CD.
Yes.
And coming from a Linux background, I'm very surprised.
Yes, that's correct. The problem is here that Sun has introduced so many new components. For example, Michael just told us about boot environment management. In my presentation, you will not even hear it because it's not there yet. Live upgrade, which is a great feature that came before BEs, but is basically being integrated with BEs. Flash archives, which is another great feature, is basically just a big file that you dump onto the installation target, and then do some tweaking, and then you reboot it, and you have a clone of a golden master machine. It's sort of semi there. It actually does work now for open source, but it's not in any kind of shrink wrap, nice and shiny, well-documented state yet. I personally believe that there will be some sort of Cayman that will do upgrading. I think it is in the roadmap somewhere, but since I don't work for Sun and I just glance at the roadmaps and design statements that they do make from time to time on their website, I don't really know when any of this kind of thing would be implemented. I certainly hope that they will implement it because, yes, this should be done automatically. There should be there's a window in Cayman. I've spared you the screenshots because you all know them. There's a window in Cayman that says, here's the disks I found, and here's what the partitioning table on the disk looks like, and that's what I would like to do. Can I do this? Yes or no? And there should be some, hello, you have 3 boot environments, and I could upgrade them now off of this CD. Do you want me to do this? Yes. If so, please click this and that. And you're perfectly right. I think this is missing. This is also missing, by the way, from AI, but we will come to that later. So let's have a look at the automated installer. What are those design goals? Well, Sun's made their money in data centers. Big racks with lots of machines, and nobody wants to crawl through the racks and insert CD-ROMs. So they have been forcefully reminded by customers that they want a system to do hands-off installation. We want to have off-site and remote deployments, and we want to be able to provision whole data centers without having too many clickety-click to do and without having to do many configuration things. So, the second thing I've already touched, there's a big problem there with the x86 architecture getting VIP treatment. And actually the other day, I think last week it was, there was a very outrageous email by some person who was very insulted and said, I think it was on Cayman Discuss, or was it? Anyway, so this person, I think he was perfectly right. He said, I want to install open source on my Spark, but I don't have a PC to spare. How dare you to give me this? Why do you treat me like that? And I mean, I can only add to that. That was basically, again, the way the stuff was developed, centered on x86, but it puts Sun in a very bad light because it gives the message that Spark is somehow not a first-class citizen, and AI is supposed to rectify this. AI should work equally well for Spark and for x86 hardware, and actually it does for some certain value of does, which we will see later. It should be driven by parameter files. That means it should be configurable by files, which I can just manage with the usual methods I manage files with. I can type them in, I can generate them, I can put them into source control management systems. I can do whatever I want to do with files. So I should actually add that we will have a look at a few of those files later in the example section. So reverse ARP and boot params and all the other strange things that Sun used to have to install Solaris on systems is too complicated, and it has other problems. It has safety risks, safety problems, especially in big environments where you have lots of intranet activity where one department doesn't know the other department. It's dangerous. Lots of information does not cross subnet boundaries because the protocols are not routable. So that's a lot of problems, and these things should be rectified and should be fixed. And of course, if you write something new, you should build on what's already available, so you don't invent a new configuration file format, and you don't invent another download protocol, but you just use what's there. So that means XML and HTTP, and of course DHCP to configure your network parameters. And It's worked out pretty well. I think that using moderate standards, it's a good method, as we will see in a moment. Of course, you can always add things and be unsatisfied with things, but I think they've done a fairly good job. So we'll have a look at that later.